You're muted, Steve.
Sorry. We're live and everything. The only audience members that will show up eventually are the people from AmeriServe who'll be on under finance. There was no one else that I could recall that signed up. So in any case, the first committee is planning and zoning. Mr. Burley, if you're okay.
Yes, I'm fine.
Okay.
We can get started.
All I have is my normal reminder, so I really don't have anything to talk about. There's no updates on any of those things. We just keep them there as a reminder. So I'm done. That's all I have.
Okay. All right. We have some information being presented to us from the code enforcement people. Don, you're on.
Yeah, I'm here, Bill.
Okay.
You ready?
Yes, you can go now. Sure.
Okay. At the last council meeting, Mr. Morris mentioned that I was working with Duquesne Light in regards to the removal of 4 trees up at Ryan Glen Park. And I met with the coordinator there, and at that time, when I had met with her, she was not willing to grind stumps. So I relayed that message back to Mr. Morris, and he relayed it back to council. And your request was to grind the stumps, voucher for the trees, and haul the lumber away, which I got a call yesterday morning from Duquesne Light, the coordinator, and she agreed to everything that you requested. So that's a good thing.
Okay.
I was happy to hear that.
Very good.
So that was that. Any questions on that Ryan Glen situation? I will be bringing this up tomorrow at my tree and shrub committee meeting. So we'll discuss the type of trees and so forth to be planted. I did take our arborist up there and I showed him, and he recommended a couple of trees that would be nice there to fill in that area. One is a red maple. I don't know how everybody feels about that, but he said it's a beautifully shaped tree and it would fit in that situation perfectly. So that's about it as far as Ryan Glen goes. As far as code enforcement goes, the last 2 snowfalls, I've issued 21 violation letters, or I'm sorry, 28 violation letters and 5 citations. So for sidewalk situations. That's all I have.
Don, those citations, are they all new or some of them old, or?
The citations are new, Bill.
So a time period that we need to wait for them? I know we had
Well, I
one
have to wait
before.
until I get hearings from the court,
Ah, okay.
hearing dates from the court. There are 5 citations that I issued for snow removal, but I issued 28 violation letters. Those are a warning letter that I send out to residents that are not shoveling their sidewalks. And if they don't comply, then I follow up with a citation. So I issued 5 citations.
Okay. All right. Any questions on issuing citations for the problems we're having with snow removal and everything? Okay. Are we going to have a report, Don, from Mr. Dave Nair? Mr. Nair?
Yeah, that's me.
Yes, you're on now.
Okay, how you doing, everybody? My name is Dave Naylor. I'm with BIU. I do your zoning, and I back Dawn up with code enforcement. I did send my report out to you guys yesterday. I do that monthly. It's a pretty detailed report. It's a log report of what we build and what I did, and it's also a zoning thing what I did in zoning. A couple issues I need some direction on. We found an illegal wall being built in Forest Hills. I asked the guy to get a survey, and when he got the survey back, we found it was 8 feet in the neighbor's property. I talked to our solicitor, I issued a violation notice, and the time has run out. I gave him 20 days, and I want to know if we should issue a citation, or how do you want me to go from there? He also has an illegal fence in his front yard, which I told him I sent a violation on that also. And I got pictures there. There's the fence there. It's at 28 Wilkins Road. There's the fence. That's the neighbor's fence. So he told me about the neighbor across the street. There's the wall there that's illegally built. It's 8 feet in the neighbor's property. So this fence here, that's the illegal fence at 28 Wilkins. Now, when I told him about the ordinance, he showed me the neighbor across the street at 25 Wilkins. Unfortunately, their fence is illegal too. That's the one picture showing it goes past the house. It goes up to that one there is illegal. So I don't know if I should write a violation on that or what you guys want me to do.
What have we done in the past?
I used to write a violation, give them 20 days and write a citation, and let the court deal with it.
Well, what do you think, Pat? Do you think that's something,
Well, does the neighbors disputing this 8-foot wall incursion?
I have not talked to the neighbors. I mean, that's.
Could you go back to that picture, please? That picture. Is this a HVAC unit or something here? They put a wall around?
I don't know. I think he's wanting his driveway or something. I'm not sure 100%. It's also illegal here. It's over 4 feet. And he actually needs a building permit too.
Oh, okay.
So,
Yeah.
but I mean, I don't know where to go when it's 8 feet in the neighbor's yard. I mean, that's a lot.
Yeah.
well,
I mean-
I'm happy to jump in.
Okay.
Buddy.
yeah. Oh, yes, please.
Okay. So the issue with the wall from the borough's perspective is it's too tall, it didn't get a building permit, etc. That's really where we want to be on this. The fact that it is 8 feet into the neighbor's yard is really between the neighbors, in my view. That's sort of the way we've approached these things in the past. And Patty, in the middle, what I think you're seeing there is just a pallet of stone in the middle of that
They
block.
couldn't tell from the picture. what-
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's
Right.
what that is. And then secondly, with the fence, I mean, we just had a front yard fence issue at our last meeting. We've had several of these in the past, and the borough has taken the approach to enforce it. So our enforcement options here are to file a citation that goes to the magistrate, and there are fines that could be issued in hopes that the resident will take down the fence. And then secondly, to the extent that that's not sufficient, or if we don't want to go that route, we can always go to court and get a court order to take the fence down. We've done that in the past as well. I usually rely on the people in the field and the council to get the feel for the individuals and decide, which way to go. To me, it appears to me that we could try for a citation. If that doesn't solve the problem, we could always look at the Common Pleas Court Avenue and try to get a court order. I mean, we have the other issue on that off that Concord Alley on Bryn Mawr that that might go that direction too. So.
Dave, have you talked to the person involved with this fence and wall?
Yes.
Oh, okay. And what's their opinion about it? Are they willing to take it down?
He says that's not the front yard.
He said that is his front yard?
He said that is not his front yard. He considers
Oh,
that his
that's
side
not
yard.
his front yard.
Correct.
Oh,
It faces the
Okay.
street, correct?
Correct. I'm taking this picture from the street from Wilkins.
Okay.
So, I mean, I didn't want to argue. I said, that's fine. I'll let council decide or solicitors decide and go from there.
I think we need to be consistent on these fence applications. And I think if this is a situation where you've spoken to the person and he isn't willing to, abide by the rule, then we have to issue a citation because we've done that for other fences of this kind in front yards. So I think we should be consistent.
What about
I
the wall? Do I issue citation on that?
I wouldn't do it for the incursion. I would do it for the failure to get the permit. It's too
Yeah.
tall. Those are
Okay.
violations. I would send a notice.
What about this neighbor across the street? That this neighbor pointed out his fence is illegal too. That one there is illegal. It goes to the front of the street. It's past the house. It definitely doesn't meet the ordinance.
I mean, once we know, we can't unknow, in my opinion. And we've always handled it that way, right? We don't drive around the borough necessarily doing fence checks, but once we learn of a fence that's in violation, we've always enforced our ordinance.
Okay, then I'll write a violation notice on 25 Wilkins and I'll write citations on 28 Wilkins for the fence and for the wall for being too high and for not having a zoning permit.
Okay.
That's fine with me.
Okay. All right, guys, I'm gonna go now. Thank you. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. So,
Great.
Thank you.
all right, thank you.
Thank you. Last, we just are wondering if there's any more committee business reports that are necessary to talk about. Briefly, I could say that we had a meeting. I didn't attend, Patty did, with the comprehensive plan structure. And I wanted to report also to Patty that I did talk to Ken Flack. He's very sorry that he'd missed the meeting. And he is responsible for grants and issuing money to the different neighborhoods for different reasons. And he knows that Forest Hills is something that we're very concerned about. He also will be retiring. And after his retirement, he's going to appoint someone through the agency that will take his place. And I think that we will make a headway with him and the other gentlemen because they have received about $50 million from the state to issue for different bridges, roads, and they're responsible for a lot of highway areas for the PennDOT. And so I think that we might be able to get some grants, I hope so, to help with our comprehensive plan. So that's what I want to say to Patty that I found out what's going on with SPC. And SPC is I don't know if you know who SPC is, Southwestern Pennsylvania Commission. There's about 4 of them in the state of Pennsylvania, 5 in the state of Pennsylvania. And they're all responsible for doing PennDOT work to make the bridges and the roads and kind of internal aspects, internal structures, like the bridge that fell down. They are responsible for making sure that bridge is put back together properly. And they also working with other agencies to try to work on Allegheny County. So I'm trying to get that. They've been a customer of mine for about 25 years, and I know them very well. And I'm gonna see if they can help us out with our comprehensive plan. And that's into my report.
Okay, then the next committee will be finance. Just give me a few seconds to switch over here. I'll let you know when I'm ready in a few seconds. Okay, and I'm good to go
Okay.
with finance.
Okay, thank you. You might admit our guests from AmeriServ. We have our report this evening from our pension fund plan owners, and they give us a semi-annual update on the status of our pension funds. And this is the evening when they're planning to do that. So Steve, if you could kindly admit them into the meeting so that they can join us.
Yeah, Frank and Sean are both active now.
Okay, good. Are they here? I don't see them on the screen. Oh, there you are. Okay, Frank, are you?
Good
going
evening.
there you are. Are you going to report for us on the
Yes, I am.
our pension plan? So thank you so much. The floor is yours, and I believe your screen share is up.
Yes, great. Thank you very much. And good evening on behalf of Sean and I to all the members. We're going to go ahead and report on the 2 pension accounts. If we go ahead to the next page, Steve. Section 1. Okay, this is the police pension. So this report is as of all of last year. If we take a look up in the left-hand corner, you'll see that at the end of 12/31/2021, the pie, which has the greatest coloring on it, is green, and that's the equity or stock market. So it was at 62.6% or 8,060,000 of this account at the end of the year. So we're in a balance objective with both accounts. Balance could be anywhere from 50 to 60. And when it hits 60, we get a 5% like variance that could go up to 65, and I have to pare it back. Down in the right-hand corner, you'll see that we start out the year with 10,412,442. Net contributions less withdrawals. Any money coming in versus any money leaving. We had a positive inflow of 140,000. The account had a phenomenal return in dollars of 2,330,741, end up at 12,883,000. As a percentage, the account last year earned 22.66% versus the markets at 17.13. So you're counted 5% plus better than the overall markets.
Excellent.
Thank you. Next page over, please. This is your history page. So if you could just scroll down a little bit more on this page, if you can, Steve. A little further, you'll see, okay, down at the very bottom, the inception date for this account and the other account are both the same, 8/31/09, which is listed down here in the legend. So back up in the inception, inception area, we start out on August 31st of 09 with $3,914,392. Over the last 12 plus years, the account had net outflows of 961,817. And this account over the last 12 plus years made over $9.9 million to end up at 12,883,000. That's a 12.04% return annually each year over the last 12 plus years. Did extremely well versus a market of 10.47. If we could go on to tab 2, please.
Okay.
Same picture here for the employee's pension. So the pie itself, and I manage them both identically. Up in the left-hand corner, you'll see that the green shaded part of the pie is the equity or stock market at 62.6% or 2.8 million. Down the right-hand corner, we start out last year at 3,772,344. Net money coming in versus money leaving. We've had an outflow of 44,502. The net investment change, again, it made in dollars. It made $843,057. Did extremely well like the other account to end up with 4.5 million. So 22.72% return for last year versus the markets, the 17, over 5% better. If we go to the next page, we'll show you the history. Again, this account started August 31 of 09, like the other. We start out with 1.6 million. 852,548 has flown out over the last 12 years. The account made over 3,777,000 to end up at 4,570,000. It's a 12.13% annual return like the other account roughly for the last 12 plus years. So both accounts have done extremely well. Any questions on the performance?
I have a question.
Yes.
I know that a lot of portfolio managers are sort of stepping back from the 60-40 traditional asset allocation. I see that we still have that. Are you concerned that going forward, the bonds may be a losing proposition, especially considering all the rate hikes?
Well, okay, the 60% isn't, and you are correct. Yes, I believe that this year, 2022, as interest rates have already climbed and they're expecting the Fed to increase rates, that even with an increase in rates, what that kind of gives to most investors that know the markets is that the economy is doing better. So the money, in our opinion, is better overweighted still in the stock market at 60% than the bond market at this point in time and throughout this year. We expect the year end to be in the S&P, if you look at the index in the market, about 10 to 15%. Whereas when rates start to climb, you are correct, the bond funds will fall. But I've already started to address that issue by I put 40% in a floating rate bond fund in both portfolios, and this bond fund yields close to 4%, but it adjusts every quarter. So again, this bond fund, that's the bulk of your fixed income, is like an adjustable mortgage versus a fixed rate. As rates climb, the rate on this adjustable floating rate bond fund will increase. Just like if you had a mortgage where when rates would climb, if you had adjustable rate mortgage, every quarter you're going to get adjusted upward. So yes, we are looking into seeing that the Fed's going to probably come out and raise rates. How many times? I don't think there's going to be that many as folks all think, because the market is self-adjusting. The 10-year, which is a very important rate, is up to 1.95. And just about a month or two ago, it was like around 1.58. So the market's going to do most of the Fed's work for them this year. But yes, I think that, again, bond funds are going to have a trouble, but we already started adjusting for that.
Who makes the, when you make changes in the portfolio, like going to the floating rate bond, is that independent or do you check with someone in the committee?
No, that's independent. We have a recommended list, okay? So I don't go rogue, if you will. You know, we have a set number of bond funds, set number of stock funds that we recommend for each portfolio manager to use. Then it's up to me as a portfolio manager to decide if I want to use them, and if I do, at what percentage. So it's all based off my recommendations for the portfolio.
Okay, last question. Do you have a year to date?
A year to date. Yes, I could give that to you 1 second here. I'm going to, let's see. Yeah. I'm going to have to leave the meeting, unfortunately, because I'm trying to, let me just see here.
If it would be more convenient for you, you could always relay that information to us later.
Yeah, I will. And year to date, you're probably at 60%, both portfolios for the month of January, which was start out a great week in January, the first week, and then the markets started to adjust. And here's what's going on. The last 3 years, and both of your portfolios have been part of this. The last 3 years, the S&P 500 earned a total of 78% return. Your portfolios were closer to 93% return of the stock exposure. So in the stock exposure, you've almost doubled your money in the last 3 years. We haven't had a 10% correction in the overall stock market over the last 2 years. So at the beginning of January, it started out the first week very well, like it was going to continue on from December. But then when more news came out about the Fed potentially raising the interest rates and going on with that, you always have these pockets where people will try and sell out. Most people that are day traders or short-term investors, they'll take profits and get out of the market. Then you leave the long-term investors more in the market. So that's basically what has happened in January. And both portfolios are probably down between 4 and 5% for the month of January, to give you an idea of where you stand with the allocation.
Yeah.
But
we're long-term investors in this thing.
Yeah, that's acceptable.
Yeah.
That's expected.
Correct. Especially after you're having a run of almost doubling your money in the stock market over the last 3 years. I mean, that's unprecedented in general. Just even for the S&P to be up 78% over 3 years when you're supposed to earn only 9% annually. I mean, and your accounts have performed right along with that and that much better. So you participated. It's unfortunate for people that sat on the sidelines for the last 3 years that have not, you can't, it's not very easy to get that percentage rate return back.
Yeah.
So you've done very well.
Well, I'm not advocating for any changes or anything like that. I just needed to
Good
know.
question. No, good questions.
Marcus,
Now-
you have a question.
I have a question. When you compare your performance against the index, is it after your fee is deducted?
That is gross. So our fees, and Sean, you're on there, right?
Yes, I am.
Sean,
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah,
their basis point fee, would you let them know what they're being charged on their account, please?
Yeah, the basis point is 36 basis points.
what does it mean? It's like point
So
three-
for example, if you look at any one of the accounts and you take the percentage return and subtract 36 basis points off of that. on each
basis
one.
points means 0.36%.
Pardon?
Just, I'm an engineer. I'm not a finance guy. When you say basis points, you mean 0.36%.
That's correct. That's right. So
Just making
If the re-
sure that I
if the
answer.
return was 22 plus percent, it's a very simple math. You could take it off, say 22, and then subtract 0.36.
Yeah, got it.
Yes,
I want to make sure I got the term right. Thank you.
you're welcome, sir.
Any other questions? Well, Frank and Sean, I thank you very much for your continued custody of our funds. I think we have been very fortunate to have your management skills at our disposal for this pension fund operation. I appreciate your efforts and I look forward to your next update. And you'll send us the monthly reports as you get them, yes?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yes. And on behalf, Sean, do you have anything else you need to add?
No, I just thank them all for their time. Thank you,
And
Frank.
Yes, on behalf of Sean and myself and AmeriServe, we thank you very much for your business. Thank you very, again, have a good evening.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. for
Thank
joining
you.
us tonight.
Thank you.
Good job, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Morris, the manager's update, please.
Okay, I have about 6 items. First 3 are kind of routine. First, cash flow. I haven't done one for 2022 yet since we're only in the beginning of the 2nd month, but I will get that done. I did finish 2021, which will be published in the budget book. I'll talk about that in a minute. And when we finished 2021, we ended up with a cash, positive cash number of only $10,000, a little over $10,000. That's not as much as we've had in the past. Some of that is due to the fact that we did, as we talked about before, lose some money because of the pandemic. And we did not reimburse that. We'll talk about that in about 2 or 3 minutes too. So just give you a few minutes with that. There was no other problem with cash generally, other than that. So you'll see that the full chart for the year last year we published in the book. And again, cash flow is just a picture of a point in time. It's like a photograph and then it's gone. And so that, 2 minutes after you take that photograph, the cash flow could be up or down. It's as you're spending money or getting money in or what have you. It's just a picture of a point in time. So that's the December 31st of 2021 that we're talking about for that. And usually I do not show, by the way, when I do a cash flow chart, and you'll see this when I do it next month, I don't show cash entering the new year because I just want to show the year. I don't know if that's great or not. If you're really good in accounting and finance, you might say, well, that's not right. But I just show what the cash is for that given year. So we did have a bit of a surplus at the end of last year, just like we have one this year, a little bit more than last year than this year. And I don't show that coming into 2022. So that's another reason why, we are still positive on cash, but just for the year itself, it was only a $10,000 plus positive number, not more than that. Does anybody have any questions about that real quick here before I go on? Okay. So 2022 budget, I am sorry, but I am so far behind in getting this booklet published. I don't know when it's going to be published. I'm doing a bunch of things for other people right now, and I just haven't had the time because these other things have been time sensitive more so than that. But I did get all the spreadsheets on the website. So you should be able to see the general fund budget, the Capital One, which is the capital improvements plan budget, the corrective action budget, which we sometimes call Capital Two, and the others, the, fire, et cetera. They're all on there. You can take a look at the numbers there, but I will get a book. The reason why some people will say, well, why isn't that sufficient? Well, if somebody comes in and wants to see it, we have to be able to show them that, for one thing. And I also think it's better for you to have something you can take with you if you need it to report to somebody or show a resident or what have you. We publish it in the library too, so there's one there on hand for anybody who comes in. I'm hoping I get this done by the early part of March, and I apologize. I mean, I have a lot of stuff in place. It's just, and I can't really have anybody else do this because everything is on my computer. It's not like I can have somebody else do this. But in any case, I will get that to you. And also next month, what I'm going to do is I have an item C. I mentioned this, I think, last month too. I'm going to give you a brief update on how to read our budget, just in case you aren't familiar with that or aren't used to that. And I do this every other year usually. And I also will give you a brief report on what all the different funds are that you're going to see whenever you get the treasurer's report every month. It can be kind of confusing. I mentioned, for example, last month that we still have money in the building fund for 4400 Greensburg Pike. And I'll explain that in more detail later, but that was my suggestion that we do that. And so we do still have money there. So you'll see a building fund number there. We are using it. We are spending it. We are doing it for maintenance and a few other things, but I'll explain that to you later. I didn't want to take time now since AmeriServ was going to be on here tonight. I didn't know how long that might take. I want to get to ARPA here, and I know Ms. DeMarco has some comments. Let me explain something first. Last time we met, last few months, in fact, for those who've been on council for more than just a few months, I showed you this chart from GFOA on calculating losses due to the pandemic. Because one of the features of the ARPA money that we got is that you can spend it to reimburse your budget for losses. And it showed that we had a loss of 513,000 plus. Well, then I attended a webinar last Monday with an attorney from Campbell Durant, who is also one of our solicitors that we use for personnel issues, mainly police personnel. But they do a lot of other training and things like that around the state. And while the rule is not set in stone yet, it's apparently going to be. And what I have highlighted in yellow on your sheet is the key thing there. You can read the rest of that on your own. Apparently now the US Treasury has said that you can make a one-time election to claim a standard allowance of $10 million in losses due to the pandemic. And that means that you can then use your money that you got from ARPA on anything. Now, they listed in there, when that Treasury filed this, 5 areas you could use the money for, and I put them on page 2 of your report. You can again read that. We've talked, for example, about using it for the sewer fund, mainly for the Alcosan regionalization that's going to happen with that main sewer line along Ardmore Boulevard. That's going to be very expensive, about $250,000 to $280,000, somewhere in that vicinity. And you can use some of that money on there, but now I don't have to worry about calculating based on what I was told. You can use all of that money, and we already received $329,000. We'll get another $329,000 this year. You can spend all of that $600,000+ on anything you want to spend it on, regardless. Now, that's one reason, again, why we did not have, I pointed out, I don't know why I'm pointing because you can't see what I'm pointing at. But anyway, that's one reason why I mentioned when I talked about the budget, the cash flow, that we were short. We didn't pay ourselves back like we did in 2020. When we got it wasn't called ARP, it was something else. When we got that money, we paid it back into the budget. We didn't pay ourselves back for any losses. That's why we only have a $10,000 cash flow surplus at the end of the year. Probably have really more than that, but approximately that much. So you'll be able to use this money on anything. That's essentially, and you can read the rest of that. I know Ms. DeMarco wants to comment on a couple of things, so I'll stop for a minute.
Yeah, I attended the Pennsylvania Municipal League board meeting last week, And they had a briefing about the ARPA money, and people were sharing what they're planning to do with it. And I believe it is up to 10 million, and we're in the smaller layer of communities that have less than even $1 million. I think I would like to put a proposal forward that we do two things. One, that we make a motion to vote on at the borough meeting, next business meeting, to invest in the Alcoasand upgrades of our sewer trunk line on Ardmore Boulevard out of this money. And that would be about $280,000 as a definite commitment. And second, under the category that says that we can reimburse negative impacts from the public health emergency, including in the public sector, I would like to recommend that we put the balance of monies that are coming to us into our general fund and use those in particular to replace arrearages that we have on sewer fees. I understand we have about $250,000 in delinquent payment. And I think we can reimburse the borough for those lost revenues out of this money. And then there may be a little bit left over, but I think if we make a motion to put the funds into definitely the sewer infrastructure and then to reimburse our general fund for lost revenues, I think we would be within the regulations, and it would give us a little bit of flexibility to use the funds as we need to compensate for lost revenues. And I'd like to propose that we put a motion to that effect on the business meeting agenda for next week. Is there any comments? Marcus.
I just want to point out to the new members of council, us investing money into the sewer is essentially indirectly giving money back to our taxpayers, because they would have to, if we have to, by law, fix all that stuff and pay for it, but then we would basically much roll it into our sewage fee. So indirectly, we're giving that money back to our taxpayers, which I think is a little bit the intent of that whole money anyway to begin with. So I just want to point that out. So I'm in favor of that.
That money is in the budget under, I believe, Capital 2, but we would be able to relieve that obligation for other things that we may need to spend it on. So I think this will be an important way to give some relief to our budget from lost revenues from people who haven't paid their sewer fees. Now, some communities are forgiving the debts of people who are in arrearage. I don't know if you want to go as far as to do that. I don't think we need to make that kind of a decision at this time, but I think certainly to replace the revenues that we've lost so that that $250,000 in arrearage is not coming out of our general fund money. I think that would be an appropriate use of these funds. And they're clearly within the guidelines that we have. I mean, there were people proposing to set up revolving loan funds and school legacy things and, memorial tree funds and all kinds of things. I was skeptical, and their lawyers also expressed some skepticism about whether we would be able to spend the money in that way without having to claw it back later if it was ruled ineligible. Angelo, you have a comment?
No, I added my comment in the chat. If we are actually relieving the taxpayers of this burden by using it for the repairs, then we should be publicizing it just to make people clear of what we're doing with that money.
Yeah, I think if we put a motion and act on it, we can then issue, a statement on the webpage explaining that after we've taken a vote and taken action on it. Unless people want to hold a public hearing. Now, some communities, I know Harrisburg had 3 rounds of public hearings. Philadelphia had 2 rounds of public hearings. Of course, they're dealing with multiple millions of dollars. I think 35, 15, millions of dollars, which isn't in the scope of what we're doing here. I think given that we have about $250,000 in arrearage on sewage payments, which we have to pay, and then the customers reimburse us, I think it's an appropriate use of replacement of lost revenue. Marcus.
I like Angelo's idea. I think maybe we can do a press release.
Yeah.
It's the day of the business meeting that we're going to do that. I mean, that sounds something worthwhile telling people. I think.
And that's also something that could be added to our Savvy Citizen if we get that running.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm happy for any public relations, but I'm concerned, are there any objections or concerns about using the funds in this manner so that we can vote on it at the council meeting on the next business meeting?
I have none.
No objections? Okay. Well then, Mr. Morris, could you prepare a resolution, an appropriate motion
Yeah.
for action at the next borough meeting?
Yeah, I
Marcus?
wanted to clarify something. So I'm sorry, go ahead, Marcus.
I just would like to hear from Mr. Corbel if
Yeah.
he has any concerns. I don't think there are any concerns, but just would like to hear his voice. too.
No concerns here. Nope.
Can I just clarify something,
Yeah.
just so everyone is aware? When Mr. Marco is saying that the number of people in arrears, the corrective action budget is balanced. It's not a negative. It doesn't have a deficit. We take into account the fact that some people aren't going to be paying whenever we or they're going to be paying late or what have you. So that is there. And when you take money to use for the Alcoasand regionalization project along Ardmore, that main line, that money that you are going to spend on it, because that is in the budget, that money still is in that capital 2 corrective action budget. You can't take it out of there to use it for something else, because that's what that sewer fee is earmarked for. You'd have to pass an ordinance to change the sewer fee or something if you were going to take the money out. So the money could then be used for some other sewer project, just so you know, but it still stays in there. I just want to make sure everyone's clear on that.
But we do
So-
have a considerable number of sewer projects, and sometimes we get storm surge damages that we have to fix a culvert, or we have, different damages that occur without, having an expectation of them. And so that money would then be available for that purpose, rather than have it committed to the Alcoasand upgrade project. I think it would just give us a little more room in the budget for things like that.
Okay, so I will put that motion on there to have that money for the regionalization project. Not a problem at all.
And if we
Now,
can,
I also, well, I'm
if we
sorry.
can put the balance that isn't going into the storm sewer regionalization into the general fund without restrictions, I
Well,
think
we're-
that would be the best option.
We're keeping it as it's in a separate fund right now, just its own fund.
Okay,
All the money's there so that whenever you want to move it, where if I put in the general fund, then that, I don't think you should right now until you're ready to use it for
spend.
something in
Okay.
particular.
okay,
And I can explain that more. You need to also take a look at the monthly treasurer's report, and I need to explain what's there to you so that you see. I mean, the borough is in very good shape. Is it going to always be in very good? I don't know, but I mean, right now it's been in very good financial shape and all that. So just want to make sure everyone's clear on that. This is not something that you need to desperately do right now. Just because I said you lost money during the pandemic doesn't necessarily mean that we weren't able to make it up in some other way. So just to be clear, I don't want anybody to think we're destitute or on the last dollar or anything like that.
okay.
Anybody else had anything about ARPA? I just have 2 more items, and they're very brief. I just want to mention them. Really not any discussion needed, but the first one, you all know that, and I'm not going to get into specifics on this because I can't without talking exec session. But just want to let you know where things stand. Our office personnel, we are working right now to hire a new administrative assistant for finance. Mr. Lawrence and Mr. Bioki have helped with restructuring our job descriptions, position descriptions, what have you, for those positions, as well as for my administrative assistant, executive secretary person, Annie. I shouldn't probably say her name, I'm sorry. But anyway, we've been restructuring those job descriptions. And so we're working on hiring that. We're also working on having the person who's replacing the treasurer trained, and that's been happening for a number of months anyway. The current treasurer has also agreed to stay on a little bit longer through March to help us because we're still looking, but we do have the ad out for that position. If anybody wants to take a look at it, it's on the borough website on the employment section there. The ad, and I believe the job description is also there. So please take a look. And I really can't go into more detail since you'd have to be in exec session to talk about it. Mr. Erweldinger, go ahead, sir.
Actually, I would like to talk about exactly what you just said. We are probably going to make a hiring motion at the business meeting. So I request that we have an executive session prior to the council meeting so we can talk about that. You know, obviously, we need to talk about it. We have to have the executive session, but then we can have a motion to hire someone, which has to be in public. So I would propose we do like a 15-minute executive session prior to the council meeting, and we probably have another one after the council meeting about regular executive session stuff. Steve, would you do that in the small meeting rooms? Because we have people already gathering in the council room. So I think we should have one at 6:45 in the small meeting room, and then we have regular council meeting at 7. Do you think it would make sense?
Sure.
All right.
Or do you mean Steve Corbel?
Yeah.
No, I meant Steve Morris.
Yeah,
No,
yes,
Steve-
yeah, I think that's fine.
Yeah.
That's
So
not
we
a
will have
problem at all.
executive session at a small meeting room right at the main door, 6:45. We can talk about details we probably will have at that time. And then again, nothing is finalized, but we may have a motion then at the business meeting to hire someone.
Okay, that's good. Anybody else on that? I only have one other item then, and this may be a little bit confusing if you haven't been paying attention for the last few months of the year. I know the new members obviously wouldn't be aware of all this, but bond issue spending, just real quick. I think I've said this before. We took out $500,000 plus in extra money when it was refinanced, and that has to be spent in the first 3 years. 85% of that has to be spent in the first 3 years. So we're working on it, following this general framework that I have listed on your sheet, based on what the Finance Committee and Mr. Erweldinger had suggested and recommended toward the end of the year last year, where we work on getting a new backhoe, which we did. We also did put a down payment on the new fire truck. We're going to pay that back out of the fire fee. That came out of that money. We did replace one truck already. We may replace others, but that will be up to council to decide. And we're going to use funds toward the Westinghouse Rec Center, the lodge. So those things we're just doing piece by piece as we spend. We do one project, then we see what we have left, and we do the next. So that's why I'm keeping this on here, but I don't really have anything more to say about it. You can take a look at it, and if you have any questions, let me know. That's what was decided last year about bond issue, and you can always change that. This is a different council if you want, but that's what we're going on right now, that formula. Does anybody have any
Just a
questions for me
question.
about that?
Have they done orders for the chassis of the trucks that we've agreed to replace?
Everything that
7.3
we
and
wanted to do has been done so far,
Okay.
but not all these trucks necessarily, but yes,
No.
the ones that we needed to do right now so far.
Okay.
Yes, but Jimmy will probably be coming to you to ask you for some additional okay on spending as we go. And some of that may come out of here, some of that may come out of the capital improvements plan.
Okay.
Mr. Erweldinger.
Yeah.
I believe we had a motion to order the backhoe. I think that already went through.
That went through, yes.
That's already done deal. And then
Yeah.
the trucks, everything else, like Westinghouse, we haven't done anything that. So only thing we really ordered is a backhoe. Which was
Right, but we are proceeding ahead on a lot of these other things, the Westinghouse Lodge, et cetera. There's different work, and you'll be seeing this more as we go along through, maybe even a little bit tonight, we'll talk about some of that under committee of the whole, but also in the next couple of months. So I don't have anything else for my report unless somebody has a question for me. I'm done.
Okay, thank you. We've covered the ARPA fund discussion under Mr. Morris's report. I had received by mail to my house a request from the Valor Arts program. I think you may remember the Valor Arts people came and presented to council the proposal for the tree sculpture that would be at the corner of Braddock and Ardmore in front of the senior center. And they are asking us if we could make a donation. They're going to have a ground baking on the 13th of May, and they would like to have an allocation of money from us by the 1st of May toward the production of this process. We did have them present to us before, and we said that we would be willing to give them some funds, but we hadn't specified how much. And I wondered if it would be possible to give a donation of $1,000 to this project out of the Borough Council to be given to them by May 1st. Do you think there's a problem with that, Mr. Morris? Does anyone have any objections?
That's not a problem from my point of view. It's up to you folks.
Okay, does anyone have any objections of putting an allocation for this public sculpture being done by a community organization for public art in our community?
No.
No.
Okay, okay, so I guess we'll need a motion to that effect on the Borough Council agenda, if you could, on the next meeting.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
I know these committees are supposed to be independent of the other members here. So when you're asking for comment from the other members, is this the right venue to do that, or is it just
Well, I was
supposed to be
asking from the
comments?
Finance Committee members, and I have Barb Martin and Cecil had no objections, and
Okay.
I do think it's appropriate for all council members to be able to ask questions at committee meetings. And if we're in the council chamber, usually the committee is up at the front, and then the council members who aren't on the committee are in the audience, and the audience can ask questions after the committee members have had discussion. But it's a little bit harder to keep that segregation when we're on Zoom. So,
Okay,
so
I'm just trying to make sure, because my impression is that the committees should be operating independently and actually not, unless you really want questions, but not really solicit questions unless they're really needed. So, okay, I just want to
well, then
clarify.
I can specifically ask my committee members, Ms. Martin
Okay.
and Mr. Watkins,
Well,
if you have any
yeah.
objection to having
Okay.
$1,000 given to the Valor Arts program.
Okay, thank you. It wasn't clear to me if you were just asking everybody or just your committee. Thank you.
Do I have any problems with either of you saying yes to that? No problem. Okay. I have
Can
a
I-
question from Mr. Erbaldinger as our chairman, who has the right to ask questions at any time. Marcus?
So I just want to make a comment about what Angelo asked, just to clarify things. Like every council member, like typically when the committee chair asks for opinions, it's committee members who get the first shot. But then people in the audience or now on Zoom, the regular council member, they can raise their opinions. And often if we feel like it affects the whole council, we actually push it to the committee of the whole. And then everyone is a member. So like big decisions, we typically actually put to committee of the whole before it goes to the business meeting. So, but things like that, if there's no real objection and it seems like smooth sailing, we don't push it to committee of the whole.
Right, and there had been a fairly extensive presentation on this Valor Arts program. I mean, they brought models to the council meeting and they were in the council chamber for some time. And they've had quite a bit of input. I'll try to put this up on my screen if you can see this. They've had a number of working meetings already. I've been to 2 of them. And both the design team and the promotion people are residents of that building there. So they've been quite involved in the whole thing. And they're very excited about it. So I think it would mean a lot to them if we could make a contribution to their project. Okay. I wanted to just mention to you that I am exploring grant funding for an electric vehicle charging station at our borough building parking lot to be installed on the side away from the police station so that they would be available by the public and also could be used by our police cars at the time that we get an electric police car. But because that Greensburg Pike is considered a thoroughfare to the turnpike and also is a major corridor that will be used whenever the Amazon facility is open in Churchill. It is eligible for electric vehicle charging station funding. I am in need of some estimates of what it would cost so that I can figure out what we need for a matching amount. The federal grant under the infrastructure bill, depending on which program we go in under, it's either 10% or 20% matching fund required. And so we need to look and see how we would manage to pull that together. But I wanted to begin by asking either Mr. Gilliland or Mr. DeJoya if they could help us develop an estimate of what would be appropriate in that space. And I'm thinking of maybe 3 or 4 fast charging stations, which my initial investigation indicator about $5,000 to $6,000 a piece, not including the cost of installation. So I wanted to inquire if we could get some engineering assistance to cost out what a program might cost. Marcus.
Me as an electric car owner and user of those chargers, they are different. They're like superchargers, which can go like 10 to 80% in 30 minutes. But you're talking about those kind of chargers, which take like, they do like 10% per hour. So
no, I'm talking about the fast ones that would be a half hour.
I think they are like more than $5,000.
Yeah, that's why I need some estimates.
I mean, they're like $100,000, but we can talk about
maybe we only get 2 then. But I need to get some idea of, what would be appropriate in that space and how much it would cost so that we can start putting a proposal together.
Yes. But our location, I agree, is attractive because it has subway, it has like a little
and the library
door, because people don't want to sit in a parking lot with nothing to do. They have half an hour to spend, so it makes sense. So our it's close enough to the 376 Parkway, so it makes sense. But we need to talk about superchargers and not fast chargers.
Okay, so I need to get a cost estimate of how much they are and how many we could put in, and get some idea of what that might look like as a grant proposal. And then, I would like to talk with the people from the Southwestern Pennsylvania Commission about whether they have a plan for a network of charging stations, and can we possibly join on to a larger regional plan and have our location offered as a space where they put an electric vehicle charging station. So I'll be making some inquiries in that direction. If any of you
I will investigate for you too, Patty.
Thank you.
Yes.
So if we have any indications of how that will go, I think we need to be timely in addressing this because the money is going to be forthcoming pretty soon. Okay.
Yeah. SPC is very strong in trying to provide the electric world. I did hear them talk about how that's growing so fast, and since they're responsible for 10 counties, they're stretched out as far as trying to provide that capability throughout the 10 county area is going to be big. So I'm going to check and see where their objectives are with that, along with you, Patty, to see what we can put together. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because it may be that they're looking for locations, and this is a public, publicly accessible space.
Right.
So that said, I think I have nothing to add for the good of the order unless my colleagues, Cecil or Barbara, do you have anything else to bring up? Cecil.
I have a question. Would it be possible to also have a charging station in our business district? That way with a half an hour, people can go and shop. And
we're looking at the lot next to the Speedy Mart, and the Community Development Corporation is talking to the owner of that space about putting a public parking lot there in which we could put some electric vehicle charging stations. But that's private property that, unless we want to lease it from them and make it into a public parking lot, but we haven't gone down that road yet with him. So we don't own property down there that would be appropriate because the fire department parking area and the public works garage parking area aren't big enough to have, public access for charging stations right there. However, the Speedy Mart lot is, and it would contain, I think, either 15 or 20 cars. And we could have a row of charging stations there, but that isn't our property. So we have to negotiate with the private property owner about that. And the Community Development Corporation is engaged in that conversation. So hopefully we'll get some response from them soon. Yeah, Mr. Burley.
At one time, because I live in that neighborhood on Halsey, at one time they're considering putting a service station there.
Well, that's not going to happen. There's no way.
I know, but the accessibility and the thought pattern is right in line with what they were trying to do, is provide an area for people to come in and either get charged or get gas.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
so we're getting charged.
We're working on him. We're working on him. It just, he's still thinking he's putting in a gas station. That's not going to happen.
Right. Yeah, he was
Nobody's
trying.
going to permit a gas station these days. Okay, I think with no further issues before us, I think the Finance Committee is adjourned. Thank you.
I just in a few seconds, we'll move to committee of the whole. Just bear with me for a few seconds, please. Okay, and I'm okay, Mr. Erlander.
Okay, too.
Okay, so I'll start with manager's update. Because there are some new members, I just want to explain one thing about credentialing and conferences that relate to me, because as I think you know, if you looked at my notes, I'm going tomorrow to a mini conference from the State Managers Association out in Hershey through the end of the week. When I was hired, and you can read this, I'm not going to go into all of it, but when I was hired, one of the requirements was they wanted me to join professional associations and also make sure I get regular training. And as things developed, the national organization I belong to, ICMA, began a credentialing program certifying managers around the country. Actually, internationally, they're an international organization. That's what the I stands for. When that happened, I did mention that to the council, and they were very pleased with that and wanted me to become part of that. So I'm required to get a minimum of 40 hours a year training at various professional conferences and webinars in some cases. The last few years have mainly been webinars, actually. So that's what I'm doing. But council also has a history of encouraging training not only for themselves but also for staff. I know some of you are going to the newly elected officials course at LGA, which I'm glad to hear about because I used to work there, and they do a good job. And other members have gone too who were already on council. So we do that with staff as well. We want them to be professional people and trained. So I just want to mention for those of you who are new, that's the reason why I'm going to a conference tomorrow, and that's what the credentialing is all about. There are a number of managers in the area now who are credentialed managers by ICMA. The certification has started about, I guess, 6 or 7 or 8 years ago, somewhere in that vicinity. Does anybody have any questions about that? Okay, then just a couple of other items. Item B, I need to put on the agenda on the 23rd a resolution, I think, that approves the tax collector's bond. And I may need to have Mr. Erlander review the last one we did. I'm sorry, Mr. Corbel. Review the last one we did and make sure that we have it worded correctly. She'll need that to file with the county. So I need to put that on the agenda. And I don't know, Steve, if that just needs to be a replacement of 1187, just reworded or redated or whatever, or if you need to actually look at it. So if you just let me know after I come back, I'd appreciate it.
You would just have to change the dates, etc.
So I can just grab that and do it myself?
Yeah, for sure. If that's what you'd
Okay,
like to
then
do.
not a problem. I'll do that when I come back. But just, she'll need that, so it'll be on the agenda for the 23rd. Probably under either ops and policy or finance. I'm not sure which. I have to think about that for a minute. Item C, background checks. We currently use a company called Clink Check Background Services. Council instituted background checks for employees officially about, I want to say, 12 years ago. And we used to have the police do them, but they're not very thorough checks. The police don't have the time to give a very thorough check, and we found that lacking. And even the chief of police, I believe at the time was Chuck, was saying that it would be better for us really to go out. And I think Mr. Corbel also advised that too, to go out to a third party. And I think, Steve, if I'm not mistaken, you're the one who recommended Clink. Maybe you had used them before somewhere. I forget who recommended them.
Yeah,
you were-
I've used them before.
Yeah.
They always do a fine job.
Well, there's a resident now who's a sales manager. He's been living here for a few years with another company called Justifax, Justifacts, who approached me and wanted to know if we would use them for background checks. I don't know anything about that, but since it went through council, I didn't feel that I should just make a decision on my own because originally the thing went through council and was recommended by the solicitor. So I wanted to bring that up. I don't know if you have a preference or if I don't know enough about them. I just learned about them. He didn't know anything about Clink, and I've never heard anything about Justifax. So, but they are on the website, justifax.com. And if you want some time to take a look at it before you make a decision or let me know what you want to do, that's fine. I just wanted to know where you wanted to go with that, because we will have somebody hopefully hired in the next few weeks to replace the administrative assistant for finance. And we will do a background check. Plus we do a background check, a mini version for all the summer hires. And the part-timers, et cetera. So I don't know if you want to talk about that now or just want to wait on that a little bit. I could put it on next month's agenda if you'd rather have some time to take a look at this company, or I don't know, Mr. Corbel, if you have any advice. No.
I've heard of Justifax. I've never used them. I don't think and these aren't scenarios where you're saving hundreds of dollars by switching. So, if it isn't broke, I don't know why you all need to fix it, but it's up to council. It's totally in your purview.
Okay, Mr. Urbanera.
I was just going to say that it's the same thing. If it's not broken, we shouldn't fix it. I don't think we should worry about it.
So just stay with Clink.
In my mind.
Okay, so right now, that's what I'll do right now, but you folks now know about this. If you want to take a look at it and tell me you want to bring it up again in the future, we'll do that. I have the gentleman's name on there who's the resident, who's the sales manager, if you want to talk to him too. But for right now, then we'll keep with Clink. Item D, I'm sorry, Bill Burley, Mr. Burley, go ahead.
Have we had any problems with the research company that we've used?
No, they've been very good.
Information.
They've been very good and very thorough. They go as far as we want them to go. They give us a written report. We share that with the hire usually. And they've usually been relatively quick. I don't want to say fast, but we get something back a few days at the worst.
Mhm.
They're pretty thorough, pretty fast,
Okay.
pretty quick. I'm sorry.
Good, glad you're happy. Okay.
Okay. The next item I have MRM Trust. This is the newer insurance company we took on. We went with about 4 years ago. Just so you know, they have always asked us for delegates, and I had forgotten to mention this to Mr. Erbaldinger when he was appointing people to various things, but they sent us information about their next meeting coming up on April 21st, and I don't know that we formally have a delegate for it or not. I don't actually remember. And if we don't, we want to appoint one to that. So I attached what they sent me to your agenda so you could take a look at it. Their meeting's not till April 21st, but they would like to have us name a delegate, and that person's the one who votes on different things at their meeting for how they handle insurance. The trust is truly a trust. So we would, as we spend more time, part of that trust, be able to earn money back as profits are made, and once we've been in for a certain length of time. So that's another reason why you want to have representation. So Mr. Opener, if you want to consider that, take a look at it, and then either talk about it next month or just let me know how you want to handle it, that'd be fine. But I want to give that paperwork to somebody so that they can be able to attend the meeting either virtually or in person in April 21st. Anybody have any questions about that? Okay, something else that had come up actually through the old delinquent fee collector that we've used before, Portnoy. Right now we use Andrews and Price, who are located in Forest Hills, but we used to use Portnoy. They were one of the few who were doing it across the state. When we moved to Andrews and Price, Portnoy was still working on a number of cases, And because they are, it would have cost the borough money to give up on Portnoy. So we kept them with those cases that they were working on. And they notified us about this Pennsylvania Department of Human Services program called Low Income Household Waste Assistance, which sounds like it's a benefit to us. It provides money for people who meet their criteria as far as federal poverty income guidelines. It provides funds to help them when they are delinquent on water or sewer type billing. So we would be able to protect ourselves for those people who meet that poverty level line. And I'm not exactly sure how many that would be. I don't know if anyone's ever formally measured it, but we did ask Mr. Corbel to review it and take a look at it, and he didn't see any problem with the agreement that they asked us to review and approve. I attached the highlights of that on your agenda here, where you're looking at it under manager's update, but I also gave you a copy of their flyer plus their agreement attached to your packet. This would be something you would have to approve on the 23rd. This got to us late. We should have probably considered this back in November, December, but we didn't know about it until the very end of December. And we gave it to Mr. Corbel to look at it in January, and this is another time we have to have you consider it if you're okay with doing that. So I either need to know whether you want me to put a motion on or whether you want to have time to look at it first and then discuss it in March.
I would like to inquire whether we can compile a list of eligible people from our own records, or will we need some other source of information to compile that list?
I don't know how you compile that list of federal poverty income guidelines. I have to look at it. I have no idea.
That's not how I read the program. It basically, for residents of Forest Hills who may be eligible, they would have to apply. But they can't get the funds unless we say we want to be part of the program. And so do you know what I mean? So basically, we really don't have to do anything other than sign up. And then, ultimately it should help the borough in a number of ways. One, helping people who need the help, but also those funds would then flow into the borough to pay their delinquent accounts. So that's how I've read it in the information that I reviewed. So that's why I told Steve that my view was, it seems like a no-brainer, but again, totally in council's purview if you'd like to participate or not.
Yeah,
my brain doesn't always work, Steve, so that's the reason why.
I agree actually with Steve. Like, I think it sounds like it's a no-brainer,
Yeah.
but we also have to publicize it on our website or somewhere.
Yeah.
Because people need to know about that they can apply for it. Otherwise, if we just silently join something like that and don't tell anyone, no one would know about it.
So
I
the
think
first thing we have to do is decide to join it. And I think we should do that at our next business meeting, and then make an effort to publicize that. This will be a perfect use for Savvy Citizen to let people know the program is available and what the criteria are, refer them to the website for details so that they can apply. I don't think there's a downside for us doing this. And it does help, our citizens who may need assistance. I know we have quite a few in low-income situations that would benefit from this situation.
And I'm not sure if our sewage billing system is flexible enough, if we can actually put a note on that. Please look at our website for that. I don't think we can do it.
I would have to Savvy Citizen Plus website.
Or if people are delinquent, could we let them know as well?
Yeah, if they're delinquent, we can send them a note. Yeah.
So I assume there's no objection to having this motion on the agenda then, right? Anybody objecting? No? Okay, then I'll have a motion to approve that agreement on the 23rd. And that's all I have to report. I have nothing else.
So next we have solicitor's report. And I asked Steve Corbel and Jack to give all of us a briefing about Sunshine Act. Should we have a Forest Hillsborough phone? How we put things on the agenda or not, all those kind of old and new rules. So I'm not sure, Steve or Jack, who will start. So I'm hoping we can do it like 15, 20-minute max.
Yeah, I'm not going to go, I don't think it'll go that long, Marcus, only because what we're talking about, in my view, and in large part, is better suited for an executive session discussion. So I'll hit the high points.
Okay, so we have to do the same thing. Maybe after the council.
Yeah, I mean, if folks have questions, please ask them. And if it's better to talk about it in an exec session, then we can do that. Jack and I spoke on the phone yesterday, and I was sort of going to take the lead, and he would sort of be my John Madden if I'm Pat Summerall. He's the color commentator here. So basically, and this is a good refresher for everybody that's on council, and for Angelo and Cecil and Barb, the new folks, like, you probably are hearing about this in the local government academies, newly elected official course, which I encourage you to continue to go to. It really gives you a good foundation, because a lot of this is foreign, and even as someone that was interested in local government, you didn't know a lot of this. So just imagine how most of the folks that you serve, what they really know about this. So two issues to touch on here. What Marcus is talking about. One is the Sunshine Act, and the other is the Right to Know law. So let's just talk about, and they intersect in some respects. So the Sunshine Act prohibits a quorum of council, which is 4 members, from deliberating, and that term is defined in the Sunshine Act, basically discussing borough business for the purpose of making a decision. And some of the pitfalls that I see regularly, and I think we may have even seen this recently, not in any kind of intentional issue or a violation, but oftentimes Mr. Morris will send out an email to all of council, and it's information in nature, right? It's informational. I would encourage all of you to resist the urge to hit reply all and to begin to state your opinion, and this is what I think we should do. What does everybody else think? Those things have happened in probably every community in our county, but typically there's either a quick typer member of council or the manager or the solicitor that will sort of right the ship and say, hey, we shouldn't really have these discussions here. We have to wait till the meeting. So from an email perspective, I think that's probably one of the biggest issues that you should be aware. Secondly, I would encourage all of you, if you're not already doing so, to use the borough provided email account as your sole means of communication on borough business. And that's advice is really right to know law in nature, because someone may submit a right to know request for any emails that you have sent with respect to borough business. And if we're just looking at the borough emails and email servers, we can do that search. We don't really have to impose on anybody. In fact, you may not even know, not that we are holding back any information from you, Steve or I, but sometimes we get these right to know requests and we just deal with them without really consulting with council, because it is what it is. But if you were using your personal Gmail account or whatever other account, we would have to ask you to spend time and go through that account and provide copies of emails with respect to borough business. And it can be time consuming. And so I would strongly encourage you not to do that. Secondly, let's talk about phones. We've had right to know requests in the past for phone records, for text messages, etc. Technology is advanced where if we did need to take your phone to image it, etc., that would probably be an inconvenience of an hours or a day, whereas in the distant past it was a little more complicated. So just be aware that when you are texting with other members of council with respect to borough business, that those could be the target of a right to know request. Same thing with phone call records. I always took the approach when I was an elected official to shy away from those means of communication, just because it could cause a problem if you need to generate text messages you had. Also, it goes without saying that the same rule that applies to emails with all of council, you shouldn't be texting about borough business with the quorum of council as well. That's a Sunshine Act issue. Now, Steve Morris, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think at least one member of the prior council, if you are interested, the borough will supply you with a phone or reimburse you for a phone if you wanted to have a phone that was maybe not as, iPhone 13 style, but something where you could take phone calls or get a text message from the manager. Steve, I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that or not.
It was up to a certain amount. I think it was $25 a month, if I recall. And only one person ever took advantage of that.
Yeah. So if that's something that you all were interested in, that can be discussed, or you can talk to Mr. Morris about that. I don't think it's exactly necessary if you just are smart about the way you use your phone. But, I do see the value if you don't even want to worry about it. And I think that former member of council, it was just like a flip phone kind of thing. So with respect to the new Sunshine Act, I just wanted to clear up a couple issues there. So when the Sunshine Act was amended last year, there were two major changes. One, the boroughs, townships, all municipal entities had to publish their agenda at least 24 hours in advance of their meeting on their publicly accessible website if they have one, or to post it in a conspicuous location if they didn't. The borough was always, in my view, very compliant with that before the law ever really changed. I think the biggest change, and Mr. Morris, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is just making sure some of our committees, commissions, et cetera, like the Planning Commission or the Zoning Hearing Board, that they also have to comply with that, and they may not have done so in the past.
Right. Right.
I have a quick question. Do our advisory boards and committees have to do that too?
Yes.
Environment, I think so, yeah.
Any group, board, commission, or committee that has a public meeting should do so.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Thanks.
They were advised by me in an email to their chairs, so I gave them all the information that Mr. Corbo had talked to me about back when this started. So,
and so that was one of the primary changes. The second primary change was the fact that all items that were to be discussed or acted upon should be on the agenda. And we've always been really good. I mean, if any of you have seen an agenda at any other municipality, Steve Morris puts together the most comprehensive agendas that I've ever come across. And I don't know if you were just a resident of Forest Hills and you wanted to know what's been going on in the borough for the last year, you could just go and read the agendas and you'd have 75% of the information, and then maybe the minutes to figure out what was passed or not, and then fill in the blanks. So I've taken a more conservative approach to this language, and Steve and I disagreed on the committee issue. But I've told Steve, I've told Marcus, I've told Jack that as this law is challenged or courts are reviewing it, my advice may change because we'll get some clarity there. But I didn't want you all to be the test case where we're not doing something or pushing the envelope, and there's going to be this case of Smith versus Forest Hills that goes to whatever court, and everybody cites it as to how you shouldn't do something, and I don't want us to be in that position. So basically, I think it's enough if the topic is on the agenda that could be deliberated upon. I don't necessarily believe or think that we have to have the exact motion on the agenda, but if there's a topic issue there, that is fine. And so secondly, let me also say this, that, there are often times where mistakes are made. People forget, you have 7 members of council, you have the mayor, you have me, you have Mr. Morris, and every once in a while, something can get past all of us and we're like, oh, we forgot to put that motion on about this lie heap issue, right? And so the law says that you can still address that if you would like. Now, you don't have to. You can wait till the next meeting if the business isn't necessary to be conducted, but you can add that to the agenda by a simple majority vote. So, and what that would require is a motion to add the issue to the agenda, voted on by the council. And then there would be if there is a motion to be made, right, to enter into this vendor agreement to participate in the LIHEAP program, there would be a motion to that effect, a vote, etc. So you're permitted to do that. The other two, besides putting it on by a motion, that you would have to state the reason why it wasn't on the agenda, which is typically we forgot. And then 2, Mr. Morris would have to update the agenda and post an amended agenda within 24 hours of the meeting. So by basically the close of business the next day. So, and I don't.
And we have to allow the public to give comments about it too.
Yeah, just the Sunshine Act would require us to allow the public to comment on both the motion to add the item to the agenda as well as the ultimate underlying motion.
Yep.
So it does slow the meeting down. It's kind of awkward a little bit as we're just learning and getting through this, but it's there. I'm not sure that we've done it in Forest Hills, but I know I've done it in 2 of my other boroughs because of just mistakes. Also, there is another exception in law that if there's some resident would come and make a public comment, that you are permitted to discuss and vote on something that a resident brings to the council. Which makes sense. I mean, you can't, that's something that you could not have anticipated, and the law doesn't want to penalize you from addressing it. So that's kind of that's where I was going to stop at my 36,000 foot perspective. I see Mr. Biocchi has his hand up. Before I call on you, Angela, I just wanted to ask Jack Lawrence if he had anything to add as my John Madden.
That mean I'm dead? Yeah, I would just keep simple in mind. The basic behind all this is you just want to avoid any perception that we're taking actions without doing it in public. And so that's why you look at things like emails and texts and phone conversations. I think the key thing to remember about email is it's purely informational, and yes, just avoid the reply all. I guess I'd also reinforce the notion that the committee chairs should take responsibility that the only things we discuss in that week's committee meeting has been put on the agenda. We don't have to be crazy about it, but it's a good habit to get into. It's just practical too.
Yeah.
If you have something on the agenda ahead of time, people can do the research and have some knowledge about the topic, whereas just kind of throwing things out, let's talk about this, may be less productive. But it's, in terms of the new rules, I think the committee chair should take responsibility for suggesting that unless something's urgent, let's move it to next month's meeting. And that's all I'd have to add.
Angela.
Yeah. So my question is, on the amended agenda, how long does that have to remain posted?
It doesn't say how long it has to be posted. I would say it should be posted in the similar fashion that we do with all of our other agendas. If we take it down in a few days, then we should just leave it up for a few days. Just make it consistent with our prior practice.
Okay. Yeah, generally, the agenda remains there until I receive another agenda to post. So
that would be fine. That would be in line with the updated Sunshine Act. Okay.
I'd
Any
say
other
that
comments or questions? Yes, Ms. Cecil, how are you?
I would even suggest that if that we would keep it on for a couple of days afterwards, because it was posted days after the original agenda,
Yeah, that would be fine.
just to be consistent.
Sure. Any other comments or questions about these topics? If you think of something later, feel free to reach out to me directly, or we can chat. It sounds like Mr. Erbeldinger's planning for a pre and post meeting executive session in a couple weeks, and we can talk about it then.
So if we don't routinely text, I don't have to worry about having my phone subjoined for review or anything. I very rarely text. I mean, I text with a handful of people, and usually they're deleted. Right now, I have all of 3 texts on my text message.
No, if we got a request, Patty, if we received a request like that asking for council members' text messages, you could simply respond and say, I have none, and then we wouldn't ask to see your phone.
Okay.
Or however we would get that information. Sometimes I've had it where folks have like Xeroxed. That's probably dating me by saying that, like putting your phone on the copy machine and making a copy, but not here in Forest Hills, but elsewhere. So, okay. Thank you all for your attention on that. I think there was one other issue you wanted me to chat about under my report, and that's the street opening.
Yes, but I wanted to just do one other comment. Like I asked Steve Morris, basically on our agenda, we always had like old business, new business, and we took that, we won't have that anymore, because per definition, new business is a violation of that. It should be properly on the agenda. So we won't have that anymore on our regular agenda, old business, new business, because it should be already on the agenda to begin with.
Well, here's what I would say, Marcus. If you want to tell members of council that they can call and try to put something on the agenda under new business or on the agenda under old business, I think that's okay. But if there isn't anything, we should remove those from the agenda, because if you sit there and say, is there any new business? Well, we really can't do it unless we make a motion to add something. So to the extent that there isn't any new or old business asked or to be put on the agenda prior to the meeting, we should probably just skip over that.
Yep, that's exactly what we will do.
Okay, street openings. I received emails from Mr. Morris and from Mr. Gilland about this issue. Currently, your ordinance, it says that we will require you to repair any opening in the travel lane in which it exists. So if it's a typical borough road, if it doesn't cross the center line, you would be required to build it to borough specs from the center line to the curb on the side where the opening, right? This is an excavation, repairing a water line, etc. If for any reason it would go over the center line, they would then be required to repair it from curb to curb. And so what I gathered is Mr. Gilliland is proposing or suggesting to you all that we change that to say if there is any opening on the street that they are required to repair it curb to curb. Is that accurate, or is that where are we still talking about that?
That's accurate.
Okay. So from the legal side of things, you can require that if you would like. You will not make the utilities happy by passing something like that, because their position is, and I've had arguments with them on this before, that I didn't do anything to the other side of the road, and there's really no reason to me to mill it and pave it or whatever. So I don't know if we have examples of this, what we're doing now is not working. And if that's the case, then yeah, let's give it a try and see what happens. But I don't know if this is another, if it's not broke, don't fix it thing.
Yeah, actually, I would like to talk about that. We used to have an ordinance where we say, if you, let's say you dig a 1 foot wide trench into a road, you just fix that 1 foot wide trench.
Right.
So we expanded from 1 foot to half the street.
Mhm.
And now I think if we can get away with it, if other people get away with it, we should go the full width of the street, because all those seams actually are bad for the street, because usually you always have potholes at the seam. So if we can get away with it, I think we should do that. Go full width of street. It just looks ugly too if you have all those patches.
The other point I'd
Patty,
want to raise is that a number of our streets are pretty narrow. And if they do a half of a part of a road, you're going to end up with lumpiness, and sometimes those filled places collapse a little bit, and you get really uneven travel situations. And I think if they feel that they can't afford to pave all the way across, they can let us know and complain. But I think to have our normal condition be that they take it all the way across the street would make more sense.
So we should
There's
prepare
an
for
awful
that.
lot of uneven paving. If you drive around this town much, you can see there are lots of places where they've been patched and poked, and and you have a lot of little patchwork arrangements around, and they do tend to collapse or erode or cave in, or they're not contiguous with the previous paving at all, and it ends up being a real mess.
So Mr. Morse, I would suggest putting a motion on the agenda then, and authorizing me to prepare such an ordinance, and then we'll get that rolling and you have it on the books here in the next month or two.
Thank you.
Yep, that's the end of my report.
All right, now moving on to committee business report. I have nothing to report. And now I would like to move to item B. And since two of my kids are on that list, I would like to delegate that item B to Ms. Martin. Can you please take over temporarily for me, since it's your committee anyway?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. With regard to the pool and summer hires, at last night's rec board meeting, a list of the summer hires was submitted and approved. And that list was sent forward to you, Mr. Erbaldinger, and Steve Morris.
And it's an attachment of this agenda, so people can see it.
Okay.
Yeah, so usually I would put it on for a motion on the 23rd for council to approve hiring those people on that list.
Okay.
So that's what I'll do. No, there's no objection.
No objection.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Now I'll go back to, thank you, Bob. Now I'll go back to item C. That's actually, Bob, I think you would like to give an update on that. And then we can ask Steve to Senior Citizen Center.
Okay, yes, thank you. The Senior Citizen Center is moving along, clearing items out. The library books that were available have now been moved over to the Edgewood Library. And my question would be, though, I wasn't on council when it was decided that just what is the disposition then for the Senior Citizen Center? What are we hoping to do with the building? Can I ask that?
I think, Mr. Corbett, correct me, I think that should be probably discussed in executive session, what we want to do with our plans are. Am I correct?
Yeah, I would agree.
I think it's publicly known that we're planning to sell it.
Yeah, but anything more than that?
Nothing more than that is on discussion now, but I think its intention is that it would be sold.
Yeah, that's fine for public consumption, but when we start to talk about what we're looking to get by way of price, et cetera, we want to talk about that in executive session.
Right. So we will put it on the agenda for the executive session. And I think, Bob, you have basically it skips D, so we have E as well.
Oh, yes. Well, currently for the sale of the property for the items in the Senior Citizen Center, an inventory was taken and decided for items both to be put on municipal for sale, as well as surplus items at our business meeting on February 23rd. That will be made public. Is there anything else I have to add to that, Mr. Morris?
No, there's two different things. Items that we have of little value that would be for disposal, that we have a resolution that covers that. Ms. Martin would just mention in a formalized way at the February 23rd meeting. And list the items. I'll have that on her report and she can just read it. And those would be ones we would just post here. And then there would be others that have some value that you want to sell. They have to go on municipal, but they have to also be advertised first. So you'd have to give approval to advertising whatever the list of items she would have that would be still good items that you want to try to sell. Just like we've done in the past with trucks for Public Works, where Jimmy tells you what he wants to sell. You list it in a motion and authorize it for sale, and then we can then put it on municipal bid.
So then we will add that as a motion at the business meeting?
Yeah, for anything you want to get rid of for sale, I'll have as a motion. For the disposal of items that are of little value, we would put on as something just for you to read.
Very good, thank you.
Okay.
And
Moving on to
yeah.
E, flooring issues.
Sorry about that. Okay. The new flooring at the pool in Westinghouse Lodges, the borough is now preparing to get bids from CoStar, which are state contracts, to replace the flooring at the pool and Westinghouse Lodges, and they will be presented at the March business meeting if they're ready. At last week's Public Property Committee meeting, the issue of laying a new floor on top of the existing floor came up. I'm sure this solution is less expensive than removing the existing flooring, but it brings up some questions I would like to share and welcome your comments, please. My research indicates 4 potential issues. 1, if there are imperfections with the existing floor and another floor is laid over top, then those imperfections soon could affect the new floor and incur future additional costs. 2, one of the estimates presented last week indicated the height of the new material being added was 3/8 of an inch. If we choose to lay new flooring on top of the existing floor, there could be an issue with the doors needing to be cut to accommodate the higher floor. 3, there is no guarantee that there won't be air gaps between the layers of the 2 floors, which may have the potential of adding to the current mold situation. And 4, at last Tuesday's committee meeting, the idea of removing the first floor could lead to discovering asbestos that would incur additional costs to remediate. Even if the flooring was not removed, during installation of the new floor, if the old floor was compromised in any way, that could result in a work stoppage until the asbestos was remediated. Most flooring companies have in their terms of contract, I think, that they will not start or they'll immediately discontinue installation upon discovery of unforeseen hazardous conditions, which includes asbestos. Given the potential of having asbestos has already been raised and the possibility of work stopping if found, I am strongly recommended we practice due diligence and get an asbestos test prior to requesting bids. If anyone has any comments.
I agree with your points. I think putting a new floor over an old one sounds like, I don't know, shady work in my mind. I'm not sure. I'm not a contractor. And asbestos, I think, is a serious issue we should check. I think one of the contractors had it in their bid anyway. I think Molyneux, that you have to do the test before they start. So I recommend that we do that. And probably Mr. Gilliland can probably help us to get it done to test. Anyone else has a comment on that?
No, I agree as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, finding it after they've started work would be a lot more bother than doing the test in advance so we know what we're getting into. If there is asbestos in the tiles, we'd want to get rid of them anyway. because you don't want to have that as a hazard on the scene.
So, Mr. Morris, would you talk to Mr. Gillian and get the asbestos testing done? And I believe of the quotes we received, which we have to redo anyway, removing the old floor was only in brackets 5,000 compared to 50,000 for the new floor. So it's like it was 10% of the cost. It was not a huge cost factor either. All right, I think that concludes.
I would just add, there's no guarantee, by the way, that co-stars will come through. We may have to actually bid it out. I don't know that there is a state contract for this yet. We haven't determined that, just so you're aware of that. So it could even take a longer time to get a company.
But the asbestos testing, I think you can.
Yeah, yes, right.
Right. Can I just add one thing too, that the floor removal, I think, was based on probably the fact that they were considered that there was no asbestos. If they removed the floor and it contained asbestos, of course, we'd have some additional costs due to the remediation of the asbestos.
Yep. All right, now we're moving on to issues moved from other committees. That's back to Angelo's question earlier. You're often like, sometimes we push things from the regular committees to the committee of the whole. So all of council have a chance to chime in. So we have those vacancy. I think they came from Jack's ops and policy. Anyone has any comment on that? I think Steve Morris, I think we should just put them all as motion under ops and policy.
Can I just say one thing too? I still think that I just happen to know because we were involved with the Environmental Advisory Council, that there is one permanent opening that's still available.
Right.
But there is still one alternate that's on.
Right, I have that on there. It's on there.
Well, the alternate is
Kristen Amos Sabanye.
right.
on there.
She's and it says that she's requesting to be moved to another. I believe she's requested to move to a different committee, I believe.
No, she wants to be, oh, I don't know.
She's asked to be on more than one committee, is what happened.
As a
She's
full-time
currently-
member, or as an alternate.
She's currently an alternate. I didn't know that. You
Okay.
told me that, so I researched and found that she is. So I put her down on this list, and she would be one that you would then vote to move from alternate to regular member, and anybody new then would go as alternate.
So Barbara Farrell, she will be basically the alternate.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I don't know that she wanted to be a permanent member. That's why I brought that up.
Okay.
She had the option. She had the option earlier and she declined.
I'll check.
Because if Kristen Amos Abani doesn't want the full member, then we give it to the Barbara Farrell. So it's easy fix.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't believe that Kristen declined. However, an email was sent asking if she would like to become a regular member, and there wasn't a reply back.
Okay, but if she replies, basically it's her choice first. She has first dibs. If she wants to become full member, she gets it. If not, then this other lady gets it. Okay.
Thank you.
So we put all that on the agenda for the business meeting.
Sure.
And I think that's it for today. So like I said, we will have 2 executive sessions. We will have one at 6:45 in the small meeting room next to the main door. And we will just hopefully talk about an offer letter, and maybe then we can do a hire during the regular business meeting. And then we will have other executive session like after the meeting.
Okay.
So that's it for tonight.
Okay. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Night.